point of view. I would say what we're trying to do is internally as well within the team is we've got different principles we're trying to abide to, and one of them is like radical candor between us, and so we share uh, failures as well as successes. And what I found sometimes in those meetings is that even though we want to share the failures, it's very easy to sense in the room that who's kind of responsible for that failure. So we're really we're calling this out, um, and over the last 3 months, it's changed tremendously in the way that we communicate with each other. Um, we've also not celebrate the failure, but be very open with what happened, and put the founders and the company at the center, which means that I'm thinking about a company that we invested in New York, who is we're currently winding down. And what I liked, I was actually in New York 3 weeks ago, and I met with one of the C-level people there who told me I've never thought I could be helped like that by one of our investors. We you know we didn't have the right strategy and we failed, and you guys have been very supportive. In the background, I know what happened, but what's important is that for the company to know that we back them up and we will give them the red carpet treatment. Um, so yeah, I think there's also a work to be done internally to make sure that the teams feel it's okay to fail, because no investment will be a billion-dollar company. So yes, and I will also give another example, which is and I was telling the partners this, we have a responsibility to raise the next generation of investors, and so we've got amazing young professionals who look up to the partners, and I said to them, they they go as an observer to board meetings. I don't, but I asked to sit in a couple of board meetings. I wanted to see what happened there. And one of my conclusions was like sometimes some of the conversations that should happen do not happen because the partners sitting around the table do not know what they don't know, and there's not even like a diverse perspective around the table. And I say if we really want to put our founders as in the center of everything we do, sometimes we need to make sacrifice. So even thinking, it hasn't been done yet, but we've been thinking that at some point we might want to give up some board seats and give it to someone who will come with diverse perspective and just really have the companies to grow. And so to go back to egos, of course some of the fathers look at me like, what is she talking about? We want the board seats. But in the end, if we're really serious about putting the founders and the companies at the center, then we should do what's right for them, and that means sacrifices.
So you've all talked about building trusted relationships. You talked about sharing failures as well as successes, and you've also mentioned that there are quite a lot of investors in the room. So thank you to all of you, the VC firms, for coming today as well. Um, I think it's fair to say that you're leaders in this field. I think you are. I think based on the feedback that we've all received and seen, we think you are leading the charge here. What advice would you give to some of the other investors in the room, be that VC firms, angel investors, around the things that you as investors can do to create the right culture to be supportive of your invested company?
I think probably one of the most important learnings that we've gotten is to not waste time trying to reinvent the wheel. So much of what's important here, so much of the knowledge that needs to be gathered or sort of processes that need to be put in place, other people have done quite a lot of work thinking about and building and sort of consolidating that expertise instead of trying to do everything yourself. And you possibly don't have that expertise, you certainly don't have the time. Particularly, so we've sort of pulled together partners like the School of Life, like Sanctus, Nobel, so groups of people who've done the legwork of, what does good company culture look like? What is a course in resilience? What is a course in communication? And all of that, and putting that together and making sure that what we're doing is connecting our founders through us with the best resources they can find for this and building the trust by being the provider of that rather than, I guess, whether for reasons of ego or ignorance, putting yourself as the person who has all this know-how and all this advice when you perhaps don't. So I think that's certainly one way to go, and it's also just just lower barrier to entry. Like finding an expert to bring in line is a lot less difficult than suddenly turning into a super coach yourself. So I think that would be a good start.
There's so much I want to say.
We've got time.
Well, slightly flippantly, I kind of mean it as a joke, but not. I mean, sort your own shit out first. We're all human beings. We turn up to work thinking that we're professional investors, and yet we bring all the baggage from our personal lives. So I genuinely mean that. I think it's pretty obvious when you're in a board and you spot people who are they're fully focused, they're fully present, they've got the best interests of the company and the founder at heart, and they're behaving accordingly. And it's pretty scary and terrifying when you don't see that. And I think we should call out bad behaviour. I was so disheartened to hear some of the experiences on the panel before. It just really makes, every time I think we're making progress in this area, it kind of kills me to hear those stories. And massive hat tip to Guy for putting this together, because I think what it does is it's actually, potentially, and forgive me, Guy, it may be not about the people in this room, because we're the ones who are here and we get it. It's about the people who aren't in this room, but it starts here. So anyway, what to do beyond sorting your own shit out, which isn't particularly helpful and sounds horribly condescending, because I definitely don't have mine sorted out. So we're a tiny team. We're 6 people with 4 partners. We've got Mark, who's our head of finance, and we've got Keji, who's our head of network. And Keji's sole responsibility in our team is to head up our founder network. And so it starts with peer group support. There's 100+ founders in our Connect network, and we think that's enormously valuable. And she's got 4 pillars to her role. One is just onboarding founders into that community of peer group. The second is leadership development, kind of workshops and programs that we've got. The third is some of the content that we put together, and the fourth is founder well-being. So, and that's got an equal weighting in that role as any of the others. So we, as a team, you need to put it front and center and start talking about it. We talk about the well-being and the mental health of our founders in team meetings. I'm trying to think. I think for us, it really started there. We had to allocate talent and budget in our team to start thinking about this, because no single partner, as much as we wanted to be good at it, was owning it and running with it. So that was the most effective thing we've done. Big shout out to Keji at the back.
I'll just pick up on Rory's point of kind of getting your shit together, and which, from Octopus's perspective, we have about 1,000 people across Octopus, about 600 in the financial services business, about 400 in the energy business, and we thought we would trial something with Sanctus, which is kind of mental health coaching. And we have an auditorium downstairs in our building, and we said, look, we're going to run a session at 12 o'clock and at 1 o'clock. If anyone would like to come, just come along. No strong arm whip, no, you have to come. And there are about 250 seats in the auditorium, and the first session was totally full, people standing down the edges, and I thought, well, everyone's come to the first session. The second session was equally full, and then we trialled it, and we said, look, we're going to put some coaching slots in place. Every single one of those 130 slots went in 22 minutes. For people with Octopus, that may say something about Octopus, or it may say something about the need to do this. So if you're leading by example as your own organisation, then how do you sort mental health, and how do you address mental health? How do you destigmatise it within your own organisation? Then I think you're in a very different place when you're engaging with entrepreneurs. And it is a lonely existence. They're 50% more likely to suffer from mental health issues. I happen to agree with some of the panelists. We're all somewhere on a spectrum, depends what day of the week it is, depends what's going on around us. But recognising that's probably one of those powerful things we've done, the most, and probably the thing I am most proud of in the 20 years being at Octopus, that we've done that, because it is life-changing for the people at work who've engaged with it. And therefore, how do you take that and help some of the portfolio companies on that same journey, both within their own organisation and them as founders, where you're having a conversation which is about, one of the previous panelists said it, it's about vulnerability, and financial services not very good at admitting vulnerability. There are lots of people in this industry where they'll walk around carrying a shield, either hiding the stuff they're not very good at, or making sure they never put themselves in that situation. Removing that shield, having a really open conversation, recognising vulnerability is a strength, And you can have these conversations and VCs leading by example and explaining what they are finding difficult and challenging. It just breaks down the barriers, and then you're talking adult to adult rather than one of you being on some kind of control pedestal.
I don't know if I'm going to add anything to that. I'm just listening to you all, and I just realized that we're far from having our shit together. I agree. I think it's sort yourself out first. And again, one of the things that I haven't had on my people roadmap is mental health. So there's one thing I'm taking away today is to make sure that we sort ourselves out. And make sure that we open about mental health within Atomico. With our founders, what I think works well is when we give them a way to be very open with us and tell us what they want and what they need, and be humble about it. Where I feel very lucky is to work in an organization that is really trying to is very mission led. And I think from that, it looks like all our founders are aligned and going in the same journey as we are. And so, that makes the conversation between the founders easy, that makes the conversation between us and them easy. And yeah, we're very lucky to be supported by a junior, I hate that word, sorry, no junior, more or less experienced, or early in their career, investors who are have very, very different backgrounds, who are very humble, just kind of like we give them a voice internally as well. And I told them they'll teach us. We'll work for them one day. So let's make sure that we give them a voice, and we're open to listening to them. And it's been a change over the last 6 months, but I can tell that people feel, they're more open about what they think about things we do well, they don't do well, and we don't well. When someone is not passively humble, it's being called out in a very nice way. It's not like I'm not the police. And with our founders, I've witnessed some conversations because I'm part of some meetings that we have with them, where they basically are vulnerable, and we give them a chance to be vulnerable. I don't know if that happens with our portfolio. I'm sure it doesn't, but what I've seen is a real change in that, and that gives me a lot of faith. But as you say, I think we all converted as the people are that we need to get on board in the journey.
Do you mind if I just add, if we've got time to add more examples? Because I think from the previous panel we had kind of two things to focus on, and given that we're called venture capitalists, the clue's sort of in the name. We care about performance, and so the acceptable end to talk about mental health, if you like, is the fact that everyone is on that spectrum every day, and if the founders are the most important people in the room for a company, and the company wouldn't exist without them, then we need to focus on getting them to peak performance as much as possible and help them kind of learn faster than the speed of experience and avoid mistakes. And I think we're good at that as an industry, as in we should be good at that as an industry because we do it in lots of other areas. So I think using our collective brains to figure out how we help founders with the right, I think of help in different kind of categories. There's advisors in terms of NEDs, there's mentors, people who've been in that seat and in that role before, but there's also coaches. And the reason that I think executive coaches are different is because they're the only person that you're paying to be in the room just for you, for the founder. Everyone else around the founder has a vested interest in that business. And so a coach is there, I know they're paid to be there, but ultimately they don't have a vested interest in the company. And I've worked with coaches myself and also seen founders work with leadership coaches and have been really transformational to my performance, their performance, and the company's performance. And so that's something I've seen work extremely well. I guess the other end of the spectrum, which we also talked about, was burnout. And this is the area where I'm less knowledgeable and therefore probably shouldn't opine at all. But I think it's really important that we understand the tools or the signals of what that can look like, so that when the worst does happen, that the impact on the individual and the impact on the company is less extreme. Because no matter what we do, that will still happen. Building a company from nothing and carrying all that burden will still lead to quite extreme situations for individuals, sadly.
I mean, I just wanted to say on a couple of things that you've mentioned. You talked about getting your own houses in order as well. One of the things that we get asked at as a trade body for the industry is, well, what are you doing to help improve the level of diversity in the industry? How can you help the industry? The numbers are shocking. You've seen some of the stats around the number of sort of senior leadership teams within venture, and it's higher than private equity, but it's still pretty low. It's still below 20%. Working to work with other organisations, so I completely agree with you about not reinventing the wheel. We're working with Diversity VC, level 20. On the PE side, we're now supporting the Mindful Investor launch. We also work with the Business Angels Association, the British Business Bank. So I think this whole community that I'm seeing grow, and it has really grown over the last couple of years in particular, and the sharing of knowledge is just fantastic. And I also just wanted to say, the HR breakfast we run for people who do HR within your role, within your firms, the mental health awareness breakfast was the best attended. We made sure it was a feature of our diversity forum this year. So that's me saying what we as an organisation are making a commitment to make sure that our membership is also hearing about really good practices and understanding what they could do to help change things. I think we've run out of time. I'm just checking to see if there's any questions in the audience. Just one over there. Sorry.